Hello, I'm Bruce McAvaney. As we all know, the ultimate goal of every footballer is to play in a premiership team. But in South Australia, by far the highest individual honour is to win the Magarey Medal. The Magarey Medal was instituted in 1898 by Mr. W.A. Magarey and is presented each year to South Australia's fairest and most brilliant footballer. Every medal awarded is of a different design, a stipulation by the donor. Some great champions have won the gold medal and the glory that goes with it, while many others have found it too elusive. Only one player has won the Magarey Medal 4 times, and he is the Port Adelaide centre man, Russell Ebert. Ebert was born at Berry in 1949 and later lived at Loxton. He made his debut for the Magpies in 1968 after being recruited from the Waikerie Football Club. In his first year, he was Port Adelaide's top goal kicker with 44 goals to his credit. Standing at 185 centimetres and weighing 90 kilograms, he is a perfect physical specimen. Ebert is a copybook example to junior footballers. On the field, he maintains a deep concentration, never indulges in tantrums, never questions the umpire, and plays with great intensity and energy. He has the ability to adjust his game to suit the circumstances, either as the attacker or the defender, or just to provide opportunities for his teammates. Ebert doesn't rely on luck. He feels that you create your own, but if something unusual happens to help you, well, then that's a bonus. Many players can control a match for 1 or 2 quarters, but only a handful of champions can take control for 4 quarters. Ebert is one of those, and that ability has made him a Magarey medalist in the years of 1971, 74, 76 and 1980, and Port Adelaide's best and fairest trophy winner 6 times. His game is built around fitness, stamina, anticipation and skills. Fitness and stamina allows him to run throughout a match. His reading of the play enables him to be in the right place at the right time to receive the ball from a teammate or to steal it from his opponent. He handles the ball cleanly and with confidence, continually kicking and handballing to teammates. It is most unusual for him to make an error, but when he does, it is his uncanny recovery and balance that gets him out of trouble. No one at Alberton trains harder than Ebert to perfect his craft. He is always working to eradicate errors. Ebert has lifted his football skills to a dazzling level. He believes in discipline and design, knowing that errors are due mainly to a lapse in concentration. You play as you train. If a player eliminates mistakes at training, he is well and truly on the way of eliminating them in a match. Port Adelaide has won an amazing 22 premierships since the introduction of the league system in 1907 and has missed out on competing in the final round only 6 times. A formidable record. Everybody at Port Adelaide demands success. Second best is not good enough. Port's record, vainly chased by other clubs, may never be equalled. Certainly its feat of winning 6 successive premierships between 1954 and 1959 will remain unchallenged for many years to come. When Russell Ebert first came to Port Adelaide in 1968, he played against many of the greats in South Australian League football. When he played against West Torrens, he had to contend with Lindsay Head, a man who had already won 3 Magarey medals. He had to play against the likes of Neil Curley, as fierce and as tough a competitor as South Australian League football has ever seen. Foster Williams was Port Adelaide's coach in those days. Foss, what about those early days, Russell Ebert, when he first came to Port Adelaide? What was he like?
Oh, he was an absolute, looking from the side, you could say that he had all the power of a body power, and he used to run so heavily. It was tremendous. I remember talking to Reg Brofoy at the time. He said, I'll never get in that bugger's road. He said, he just runs straight, and he runs with a heaviness that takes his body through people. And I think this is Russell just grew on top of that in terms of approaching the ball this way.
Looking back now, are you surprised that he's been so successful?
Oh, not at all. We saw that from the start. In fact, we had a very good team when Russell came into it, and we had to play him in the unfamiliar place at full forward. But he did sensationally there, and he could catch the ball. The only thing that let him down the early part, and it was against his thoughts too, that he couldn't kick the ball well. But later on, he kicked the ball well, and of course, he could have played in any position. In fact, I think he has played in every position.
Foss, what was his attitude like to training in those early days?
Very good. No, he was very good. He got a bit of a monkey on his shoulder, I think, in terms of some of the training later on, and he might have declined a little bit then. And then I think he was consoled, he matured in his own game, and he come forward, and now he's an absolutely tremendous trainer.
Foss, you've seen some great players over the years. How do you rate Russell Ebert?
Well, they always talk about Russell and Barry Robran as the two people, and I suppose the greatest game, or the greatest competition on a game of football I've ever seen was Russell and Barry Robran as the two people, and I suppose the greatest game, or the greatest competition on a game of football I've ever seen was Russell and Barry. They were opposed that Russell was playing centre-half back and Barry was playing centre-half forward for North Adelaide at Prospect, and to me that was the greatest game, or the greatest competition I've ever seen in a game of football. Russell won the day. It was the best game of as a centre-half back that I've ever seen anyone play.
Fossey's contribution to Port Adelaide in the last 15 years, how would you describe it?
Well, Russell has just fitted in. When he became a centre man, you could say that he was going to be responsible for about 32 kicks in the day, and that was on an average, and sometimes they'd go into the 40 area, and a person that's contributing this sort of way means that he's a match winner in his own right.
Do you think Russell Ebert would have been any different sort of a footballer had he played for another club but for Port Adelaide?
Yes, I've seen so many other players that have come into football, and you think that you love them there, and you see them decline because they haven't got the attitude of strike, hit, and play football in its total effort. And Russell, he was tutored and disciplined to play the football in the total effort, and I think this has been part of his ability to perform.
Easily beat the base centre. Great catch, Russell Ebert. Magnificently judged mark, Russell Ebert. A good, steady, solid game by the captain of Port Adelaide, and he's one of the reasons they're 47 points in front. Way out to bring it back, and he'll come to the grandstand side. Ebert gave him a call. Here's the lead from Ebert. Has he got it? He has it. Great mark. In the second, Barton again towards the half-forward line. Oh, Ebert! Oh, beautiful! He's beaten him twice from the front, and then he gets behind Howard and marks over the top.
Fragamini's kick. Ebert on the lead. Oh, good strong mark, Russell Ebert. It's right down towards the square. He's lifted his gut. Lehman with the chance. Bodies at will. Tries to get it up. He's a bit half-hearted now. His approach as he's beaten for it by Darryl Cale, and that was well done. Handball's good to Taylor. Kick going down the line, finds Boston, the new player on. He gets a quick handball to Gerlach. Port Adelaide into attack. They need a goal. Over to Ebert. He puts one hand out. He's over it now. Running in there. He's kicked it himself. And that was brilliant play by the 1971 McGarry Medlin.
Monberto gathers. Passes for Rodney Robran. He's beaten for the mark by the brilliant Ebert. Ebert's been switched to Barry Robran in the hope he'll hold the champion in check. Their battle should be a highlight from here on.
You're happy with your star player Russell Ebert playing at centre-half back?
Well, I think if we had 5 Russells, I'd like to play in a 5-year position down the centre. We only got one, and we've been fairly, unbalanced across the half-back line, and Russell has balanced it up. He's a ball player, and he gets the ball and can do something with really coming back and rebound from there.
Hand pass on for Fleischer. Drops it in low towards Ebert. Ebert tackles back towards for Fleischer.
White waiting on the ball. Light read it well. Geez, quick once it hits the deck onto Ebert. Ebert goes into the goals, and it'll be 6 points on the board for the Magpies. Ebert again. Oh, look at him. Handball. Look at him go, says Wally knows. It gets it to Light. Willard's beaten him, as Ian Aitken's voice told you earlier. Tap on by Ebert. A great game from him today. Over fights Treadway. Back to Ebert. I bet he'd love to kick a goal. Here's his chance. Steers it up there. Wouldn't the Port fan loved him to have got that one?
And Davies hasn't been on the ball much since the first quarter. Taken there by Ebert. And if this fella fires, it'll be all over. Good night, Nurse, as that goes looking across here for Ebert. Ebert will have Nelson after him, but he breaks cleared as the Port Adelaide champion. Over the back of the pack it goes. Taken there by Russell Ebert. Dual McGarry medalist. Round he goes. Left foots it down. Over to Nat. And this is why Ebert was one of the best on the ground last Saturday, because he kicks to position all the time. Hale's kick.
Oh, Ebert, one hand. Magnificent mark. Up in front of his opposition. Hooks it back, and he was the player they were looking for.
Beautiful control by Ebert. Look at that. Jeez, champion.
To represent South Australia in interstate matches is a great honour. Ebert has achieved this with great success, having played 26 interstate matches over a period of 9 years. He was state captain in 1977 and also captained Port Adelaide to a premiership in the same year. In 1979, a brief move to Melbourne saw him playing in the VFL. He was a member of the North Melbourne football team under coach Ron Barassi. He played a total of 26 games for the Roos. Teamwork and stable administration is the key to the success of Port Adelaide. Former Secretary and General Manager Bob McLean describes Ebert's contribution to the club. Well, Bob, you've been involved with Port Adelaide Football Club for many, many years. How would you describe Russell Ebert's contribution to this club?
Well, without a doubt, any player that could chalk up a record like Russell has done has been a tremendous asset and a wonderful advertisement for the club. His ability, he rates with me along with Bob Quinn, who a lot of people may have forgotten now, and Barry Robran for sheer skill. They are the three in my book.
Well, Bob, what do you think has made Russell Ebert such a great footballer?
Well, he's dedicated himself to the game. He's played the game as he's trained. He's an object lesson on the training track to any young player, and he possesses skills that, well, everybody would like to possess. He is a more mature person now than he was when he first came naturally. I think he was only about 18 when he first came here, played his first season at full forward and kicked 40-odd goals, but was don't care, couldn't be bothered much in his early days, but these days he really puts the head down and accepts a lot more responsibility than he was prepared to do when he first came here.
I think you were telling me earlier that he's only missed, 6 games in 323 for Port Adelaide?
A couple of years ago I took out his record of games missed through injury, and he has only missed 6 games. Now, this doesn't mean that he doesn't get hurt the same as other people do, but where again people could take a leaf out of his book, he works on his injuries. He gives himself the treatment. He makes sure that he gets treatment, and that's why he's able to come up every week and play the football that he has played.
But here's the chance. Norsworthy's after him. Just couldn't get to him. Look at that. Legs carrying him away. Snaps it up to the goal, and there's a magnificent goal to the Port Adelaide champion, looking this season for his 3rd Magarey medal. Side of the oval. Holst was tackling. Treadray back to Ebert. Good football. Direct approach towards goal. A beautiful kick. Was kicked towards centre half back. Look at Ebert. Beautiful mark to Russell Ebert.
It's a crazy ball, remember?
Hines, number 16 there. Ebert patting the ball along in front of him. Great footballer, Ebert. Steadies, left or right, it doesn't make much difference, but I can guarantee you this, whichever foot it is, it always finds a teammate. Here's Ebert straightening up. If ever a man can kick goals, it's Russell Ebert, and straight through. Well done, Russell Ebert.
Out of trouble as he's kicked towards half forward, is over the head of Ebert and Sanders. Back they go for it. Sanders there, pulled off the ball by Ebert. Craig and Wiggins do battle. Ebert on the ground. Oh, brilliant football, Russell Ebert. Wilson, Giles, look at Ebert. Hands and knees, gets up casually. Now puts the ball and kicks towards half forward. And Butler from behind scrawled wide. But Bob, have you ever seen anything more casual or easier than that effort of Russell Ebert?
Only those when Barry Robran was at his heyday. I think that they compare as footballers, and they're two of the greatest players since the war in South Australia.
Ebert has to contest the boundary throw-in. Oh, does it very well too. Look at the strength of Ebert. That's why he's won 3 Magarey medals. What a superhuman effort here from Russell Ebert, who salutes the crowd.
Taken away now by Granger for Port Adelaide. Spreads out the long handball to Ebert. Ebert's clear, has a bounce. What a luxury, 2 bounces. He's running straight into the open goal. Magnificent football by Port Adelaide. It shows on the face of Russell Ebert. He's kicked 2 goals from the centre. A great display, Michael. Make for a 4-time Brownlow medalist.
Back to the half-forward line of Russell Ebert. Markinit's doing it well down there. Under pressure. Look, Ebert won't get in. Hoffner in. The tackle by Lachlan was good, but it's back to Phillips. In turn, Ebert's the running player. Almost tackled, gets clear.
One of Ebert's greatest concerns has been a lack of direction in coaching at junior level. The quality of the game depends on the quality of the players, and there are not too many around today who have mastered the basic skills. One of these young players with a great future is Port Adelaide's Craig Bradley. He describes what it's like playing alongside and with Russell Ebert.
Big thrill for me, kind of looking up to him over the years and then finally getting a chance to play with him. I didn't really expect it, but it's good. You know, the tipsy hands out, and just to watch him play so closely, it's really good.
And what about Russell Ebert on the training track? What have you learned from him over the years?
I suppose the main thing I've learned from Russell is that he's a very hard worker.
everyone sees him out of the game and he does all these brilliant things and he runs all day and never seems to get tired. But if you watch him on the training track, he always does everything 100%, and if you're not doing 100%, he'll certainly tell you about it. So that's probably the main thing I've learnt from him.
Well, you're at the beginning of what we all hope is a wonderful career. I suppose, looking at it now, it would be great to think that one day you might be as good as Russell Ebert, or put as much contribution into this club as Russell Ebert has done.
Well, that's a pretty hard question to answer, because after watching a person like Russell Ebert play for so many years and do such a great job, no one can answer that sort of question. So, but I hope just to do my best. And if I'm half as good as Russell Ebert, then I'll be a very proud man.
Put the legs into attack, goes towards the half-forward line. Turnbull in there, can't bring it down. Michael Taylor, Ebert in the feet. Does it well, one of the 4 times McGarry medalist. Pushes out the pass to the half-forward line. The leap's on, Williams up, can't bring it down. Ebert working the ball well. Wants back-up support, gets it from Boyd, 30 metres out. Hooks round the corner, floating in towards full forward. Evans, Sturkowski. Williams on the half-back line, supported by Kinnear, who's well balanced. Wants to run it out of defence. He gets the run now from Phillips. He's at centre half-back. Ebert trying to draw the player. Ebert's there now. Port Adelaide with method. Building beautifully. Evans is on the lead. But Ebert has had 3 bounces. He's going for home with a long kick in towards full forward. Oh, what a goal! A goal from the Port Adelaide Port Home McGarry medalist.
He would cost every bit of 150,000 on the market if you could get him. Over to Ebert. What a player Ebert is. Superb movement through the goals. They're hard to kick from there.
This is when the class wins out as the chips are down. Transfers it over to Ebert. He's well clear midfield. Has the luxury of a couple of bounces. The Port Adelaide champion goes in long towards full forward. The leaper at the back there is Abernethy. Quickly in Bradley. Slips it over. Ebert heads towards the open goals. 40 metres out. Steady. Pops it again. Second goal. Port Adelaide can do no wrong.
Well, who tries to get it clear? McFarlane forced to kick hurriedly at centre wing. Martin gets an awkward bounce, 3 against 1, however. Ebert the support, tucks it under his arm and away he goes. Goes long into the square. Port Adelaide player.
Gives chase. He's beaten Marshall easily today, Martin. Marshall's kick is high towards centre wing. That man again. Best man on the ground. Russell Ebert. A nice looking kick. Drop punt. Evans once more up. Bumped away. Clifford taken off him by Cale. Ebert chips. Another one home. Great goal, Russell Ebert.
Away goes the racehorse. Flicks to his left foot. Kicks it high towards centre ring. Ebert in front. Corns from behind it. Ebert again as he takes a great goal. Bellingham. Now Martin all runs straight into fate. Throws the ball away to Ebert. Ebert away. Oh, magnificent football by Ebert.
And a crowd of 52,659 people at Football Park to witness Port Adelaide's supremacy in the 81 grand final. Ebert over the top again. Oh, this fella's rejuvenated. 20 grand. He's still fighting on in this last quarter. Have a look at this for a 32-year-old player. He's got to be as fit as anybody on the ground, and what a sensational game he's played.
Free kick again to Ebert at centre wing. This will be his 20th kick. Great display of football by Russell Ebert today. Into the pocket. Oh, he's found Greenwood.
This is probably worth 3, and they've only got 3 points at this stage.
Carey up again. Papers flat-footed. Belton Moffat gave it to Ebert. He tips in towards goal. It's going to get the distance. That's a goal. Ebert.
Full forward is a difficult position to play in, but Port Adelaide's Tim Evans has been their spearhead with more than 700 goals to his credit. He describes what it is like having Russell Ebert in the side.
Well, I'd say Russell would have to be the greatest player I've had the privilege to play with. His disposal, his handball, his ability to set the ball moving for other teammates has been tremendous, and obviously he's given me a lot of those goals throughout the seasons.
What about when you started here at Port Adelaide? What was Ebert's influence on that team when you first came to this club?
Those first 2 or 3 years when I came across here, he was unbelievable. He was a real playmaker. He set the game up for the rest of the teammates, and really we probably relied on him too much over those first 3 or 4 years, and now we're sort of relying on other players, but it was his influence that's really set the game up in those days.
And Tim, you've seen some great players, not only here but in Victoria as well. How do you rate number 7 for Port Adelaide with the great players that you've seen over the years?
Well, I've seen some great players. Of course, I played in Victoria for 4 or 5 seasons. I saw the Darrell Bulldogs, the Jeslinkos, Royce Haas, but he'd certainly be on a par with those players for sure.
Tunnel balls it. Berrington after it. Ebert showing a lot of pace. Well done, Russell Ebert. Gave Belton the chance. Back to Ebert it goes. The centre half back. Port Adelaide captain. He'll kick a goal if he's good enough. Gives it a big chance. The umpire getting under it. What a great run from Ebert. That is a captain leading by example, Ian.
Oh, Peter. Still a tremendous player. Bradley seems to be okay now. Ebert is the running player. He's going to have 2 or 3 bounces. He comes out of defence as well. He's flanked by Kinnear, but goes for the short pass to Vice-Captain Cunningham. Right on the line. He's got it.
Phillips got it out. North Adelaide on the run out. Davis is caught. Down he goes, holding the ball. Great tackle, Russell Ebert.
Hughes goes to the outer side, looking for the run of Ebert. A nice pass, just where he wanted it. He's going to bolt off. No way that Arnold's going to catch him. Cooper there to Shepherd in any case. Ebert straightens the ball up. That's a good pass. He left the football behind. Folletic under pressure from Thomas. Dexter Kennedy. Bradley, or no, Hubbard it was, tackled high. Ebert from 30 metres out. The umpire doesn't move a muscle. Good umpiring. Hubbard might have got the free kick, but Ebert was well clear. Casual as you like.
Just forward out in time. Wide he goes. Russell Ebert's given the run. It won't sit. Yes, it does. Ebert handballs it back. Bradley pushes it forward. Can't pick it up. Ball McIntosh got it to Thomas. Menzel. Down he goes. Holding the ball. Oh, great tackle, Russell Ebert.
Bounce down. Kennedy hooks it back. Geez, winning the centre bounces now. Port Adelaide can't get it away, however. Ebert back in trouble, gets it out well to Giles. Port Adelaide attack again, this time through their half-forward line. Russell Johnson goes through to Reeve, quickly Clifford. Ryan Cunningham into the open goal. Beautifully done, Port Adelaide. Gee, you don't get it any better. That started with Russell Ebert. And if you go to centre-half back, you see 3 Port Adelaide players rush back to congratulate Russell Ebert on a brilliant handball that set up the whole attacking movement. Kennedy's there. Ray Hupperts. Russell Ebert, Port Adelaide with a lot of back play now. Oh, that's a great kick by Ebert. Don't see any better than that. Can't buy those kicks.
He now is hit on a punch back. It's knocked over the top. Be ready. Complete team effort today. Come on, extra work from everyone. Game on Saturday should just give you confidence. Let's really build it up today.
As a former teammate and coach of Russell Ebert, John Cahill talks about Ebert's contribution to the Port Adelaide Football Club.
Oh, it's very, very important, Bruce. I think originally when he came down from the bush, he saw football as a game and it was beaut to play and all that, but after 2 or 3 years initiation, he sort of settled down and realised what football could mean to Russell Ebert. And the thing I admire with any sportsman, it doesn't matter who it is or what they play, Bruce, is the dedication. And Russell has that dedication and he has exceptional ability as well. So you combine the two together and you have a champion.
On the training track, Russell Ebert must put in something extra to have got to the level that he's reached over this period of time.
Yes, he certainly has. As a young player, he really dedicated himself and he was a treat to watch on the track. And as a coach, particularly when he was younger, he would just do everything to perfection and we had to cull him back at times. And that's the only way for a young player to improve, is to go out 100%, because every ball on the training track is very important, Bruce, and that's the way Russell Ebert approached it.
And John, you've seen him from the beginning until now. What do you think he has improved over those years? What's he really worked on to have made him a complete player?
Right, well I think he's looked at the game from both sides, from a player's point of view, and perhaps he's seen in foresight, the coach's point of view, that he has to be a complete team man. He's always been unselfish. I would say that his training has picked up from his first couple of years to coming down as a young lad, just playing league football, to hitting a peak at 26 to perhaps 30 and really excelling. And that's because he trained so well. He really pushed himself to the limit on the training track. He improved every facet of his game. His left, his right-hand handball, his two-sided kicking. And of course in the last couple of years, whilst he may have just lost a half a yard, the anticipation and the dedication has made up for that.
And finally, how do you rank him with the other great players in South Australia in the past 25 years?
Well, he'd have to be right up to the front. It's hard to pick a player to surpass him. So Russell would certainly have to be right up the front, Bruce.
Looking for captain coach Ebert, all one hand, anticipating that well, left-handed hand bounce. And the kick looking for captain coach Ebert. All one-hand screamer, and it's paid on the half-forward line. Knight is wide. Ebert short. Oh, here he is in the goal square. Unattended is Tim Evans. Down to Russell Ebert. Magnificent control into the centre area and the chest of Marnie. Slips it nicely to the running Bradley. He in turn, oh, this is champagne football.
He could almost kick it from here. One-on-one situation in the square. He's putting it up for that situation. Winter in front, Evans behind at the back of the pack. Here's a chance now for Ebert. He's done it! Great goal. Great Ebert. Bounding away. Second bounce. He'll give the handball over. No, kicks long in towards the forward pocket. Well taken there by Russell Ebert, his brother. Twist, turn, back towards full forward. Got the best of kicks, although the ball holding up. Tim Evans, can he kick his 8? All he's got to do is stand up. Tries to get the free kick, but he ducked the head. Players trying to kick off the ground, they can't. Russell Ebert turns around and pops it through very casually. His first goal. Russell, Motley, handball away. Anderson hooks around the corner, getting back under Ebert. Ebert, oh, what a mark! What a brilliant mark, falling away from the ball. He's got it 35 metres out. We'll back him in from here. But Russell Ebert knows how to dispatch a ball. The kick underway. The umpire does not move. With a long handball which went straight through Dwayne Russell. But like a bulldozer, he clears the pack. And it was great work here. Russell Ebert picked it up. What a great kick for goal. Superb kicking, Russell Ebert. Stephen Williams in towards the half-forward line. Russell Ebert, good mark, plays on. Drives towards the open goal. The umpire said he's done it. A nice looking kick. Belton has played well. Evans got one hand. Ebert drives in towards goal. What a magnificent kick. The umpire is motionless except to indicate that Russell Ebert's got his second goal. In the end, Thomas went for it. Johnson picked it up. He should have been the ruckman, but the bounce wasn't a good one. Russell Ebert, 30 metres out. Steady, twist, turn. He's still got it. Evans is coming in late. Off hands, tapped through by Bradley. Chance now for Belton. Belton's going to go over the top. Now what's Ebert going to do? He turns, snaps away, and I think he's popped it through. He has. The captain coach has got one.
We spoke to the champion himself, Russell Ebert, the man who's won 4 Magarey medals, about the past, present and future. Russell, what age did you start to take an interest in football?
Well, our family's been involved in sport and football ever since I can remember, so probably even before I could walk.
When you were very young, did you play football just for the fun of it, or even at that stage, did you have an idea that Russell Ebert one day might be a special footballer?
No, I think every youngster should just play for the fun of it at that age, because if you go out and are commanded or demanded to do things at that age, well, I think your interest will wane pretty quickly. So if you do it for a fun thing at the start and then get more competitive as you get a little bit older.
Russell, you've worked very, very hard on your skills as an older person. What about in those young years, your attitude towards training as a young person?
Well, it's at an early age with your skill training, it's really getting the ball and kicking it. I don't think a real emphasis was placed on skill at the 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old level, but as soon as you start playing junior, senior colts and onwards, that's when your skill level has to improve.
When did you start to think about developing your special skills?
Probably the development of the extra skills and the extra training started when I was around about 16, 17 years old and just coming into senior football. At that age, once again, in the country, you're playing against seasoned, experienced men who know all the tricks and traits. So you realise then that just getting the ball and getting rid of it isn't enough. You've got to develop every facet of the game to its fullest extent, otherwise you just don't last against men. And playing against men in A-grade football in the country at the age of 16, 17, you suddenly, you quickly learn that you must develop everything to the fullest, otherwise you just don't survive. Probably the biggest influence once again came from the family, and My father being a captain and coach of various country sides probably influenced my career and just the general family involvement in sport and wanting to enjoy it, compete and hopefully win.
Which league clubs approached you first and how did they get to know about Russell Ebert?
When I was at Wakery, most of the league clubs were out on the prowl then, interviewing and trying to recruit players because there wasn't the situation of restricted boundaries and zones at that stage. So any player that had sort of any sort of potential was interviewed by league clubs. And at that stage, I was at Wakery in 1967, and a lot of the league clubs came up and spoke or corresponded. And most of them have their spies and recruiting officers in the different areas, particularly in the Riverland where I came from and the southeast and probably Port Augusta, the west coast. They've all got one or two people who are interested in young players who are coming up and try and channel them to various league clubs. So probably the league clubs got to hear about the various players through those channels. I was contacted by letter and then personally approached by the recruiting officer.
What made you join Port Adelaide?
Well, Port Adelaide at the time had a very good source in the country, and there was a couple of chaps in the Riverland who were very port-minded, and they just kept hounding, and probably that was the reason that I went to Port. But to fit into the side, that wasn't really a huge step either, because at that stage Eric Freeman was selected to represent Australia in the cricket, and he was at full forward. And when I came down to do a little bit of the summer training and early trial matches, they basically groomed me for full forward, which I was real pleased about. And there was an opening in the side at full forward because of Eric Freeman's commitments with cricket overseas. So with the encouragement of the other players, I fitted in there.
Also, young footballers have football heroes. Now, when you first joined Port Adelaide, were there any players in particular that were part of that team that you'd looked up to?
No, not really. I'd heard the names, of course, but really didn't appreciate that league existed because of my involvement in country football and the family involvement. I had brothers playing, one playing A grade, one playing B grade. I was playing senior Colts. The younger brother was playing junior Colts. So really our commitment was to the Loxton Football Club at that stage, where we were all playing and all involved. And really I didn't become aware of league football till probably 1966-67.
The great Port Adelaide tradition, we hear about it so much. What effect did that have on your game, do you think, when you look back now, playing for Port Adelaide? Do you think Russell Ebert would have been a different player had he been at another club?
Oh yes, you'd have to say that, because anyone who's worn the black and white Guernsey appreciates that there is a difference. And when you get such a solid club, player-wise, administration-wise, tradition-wise, well then it's got to rub off. And this is what all the other clubs strive for, is to get that little bit extra that we know, and it's probably hard to explain, but it is definitely there in the Guernsey and the club.
You've been playing senior football for 15, maybe 16 years. How has the game and the training methods changed during that period?
Well, it's obviously become more professional and more demanding. The pace of the game has changed. When I first started playing in 1968, you had your position to play, and that was it. If you were full forward, well then you were full forward. If you were centre wing, you had to stay on the wing. Now the players become that much faster, and a player has to be flexible to play almost any position on the ground at a given time because of the nature of the game and the pace of the game. But in the early days, it was sort of a centre-half back against a centre-half forward, or a half-forward flank against a half-back flank. Now, when you go for the ball, you could have three opponents.
And what about training?
Training, we used to come down, Bruce Light and I used to drive down from Wakery Tuesday and then train up there Thursday night, and that was it. Now we train Sunday, we train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, we play Saturday, of course, and then it's back to Sunday. And that doesn't include the nights where you have to watch videos and dissect your game and your opponent's game and the team's game.
Of all the things that you have achieved in football, is there any one that gives you the greatest satisfaction?
Yes, 1977 Premiership, without doubt. It's a team game, and to win that Premiership after so many lean years, about 12 years of playing league football, and to get so close, playing about 4 or 5 grand finals and never even get close to winning a Premiership, the feeling after that when that final siren rang in 77 was a real highlight, and the highlight of my career.
Centre wing, Corns couldn't complete the grab. Holt took Ebert out of it, allowed Corns back in. McInerney, Ebert through, Springs got him by. In trouble. Loops out towards Johnson. Ebert putting in the supreme effort. Back to life. He's clear at centre wing. Caldwell. Cheers through. Ebert keeps the ball running for Port Adelaide. 50-minute mark. 7-6 Port, 6-3 Glenelg. Ebert with a right in the centre of the ground. Flanked by Cunningham. Going through as well, Paul Fleischer. Back to Cunningham in the double play. The Port Adelaide Rover into Woods. Forward. Kick into the open space. Wayne Phillips out on the lead. Greg Phillips behind. Len Warren. Port Adelaide move it forward. Russell Ebert in the right half forward flank. Across again to Warren. Barkler. James buttering up again. Ebert, determination on his face. Kicks the ball to a half-forward line off the ground. Just on 9 minutes of the last term played. Carey's tap away. Ebert through. He can bounce his way into attack. Carries it towards centre half-forward. Then goes for the lead of Evans.
Russell Ebert, who bows and declares that a premiership is greater than his 3 Magarey medals.
A 19-point margin to the Magpies, and David Johnston successfully marks. A quick play on, they have to move it. Russell Ebert, he can bounce his way into attack. Into the forward pocket he goes. Jeff Lethen is there. The experience of Lethen running into the open space, creating the lead for his skipper to kick to worked.
Coughing in there, Leo. Lethen comes out, dribbles it along the line, but once more valuable seconds ticking by. Ball out of play, full forward pocket. 7 minutes of time on. Port Adelaide, the premiers in 1977, centenary year, and triumph for John Cale. Taken us a bloody long time, but by Jesus, worth it.
What about nerves before a match? Do you suffer from nerves before a very big game?
I suppose if you're not suffering from nerves, well, then you're not properly prepared. And anyone who goes into any event 100% relaxed and thinking that it's all done, that they will never ever succeed. So it's a different sort of nervousness. It's hard to explain, but it's just an eagerness and a keenness and probably a tuning to the nth degree to get ready for that particular event, whether it be a team game or an individual performance. But I suppose you'd call it nerves, but I think it's just the feeling of expectation and preparing yourself properly for the event. I believe that players have their day, and every opponent is hard on their particular day. Barry Robin is undoubtedly the best player that I've seen, going all through the names of whoever you'd like to throw up, because he's undoubtedly the most brilliant I've seen. And I suppose probably the hardest opponent because of that. But then again, when you're playing a particular player like that, you lift yourself. Every player has good days, and he may be an underrated player, but he'll do a job, and so he's got to be a hard opponent. But it's not always the brilliant big name player that is the hardest opponent.
How do you feel about coaching the great side, the Port Adelaide club?
Well, it certainly is an honour to coach Port Adelaide. It's an honour to coach any club, I believe, because you've been given the opportunity, and the people who elect you consider that you can do the job. And particularly with Port Adelaide, with such a tradition over the years, and the small number of personnel that really hold positions at Port Adelaide, that even brings it home more to me, the importance of the job. And I've sort of gone into it with open eyes, because I've played with the lads for a number of years. I've been associated with the administrators down there for a number of years, and really it's not different to what I thought, but it's very, very demanding, and people just don't realise the hours that are put in preparing just a small segment of training. The hours of preparation that go in are unbelievable, but I'm really looking forward to it. I've enjoyed what's been done up to date. The lads are keen and enthusiastic about 83, because we weren't successful in 82, and I think if the people around are keen and enthusiastic enough, this makes the coach's job a little bit easy, not a little bit easier, not that it's easy, but with 100% support, it makes the job very rewarding.
What advice would you give to a young person who wants to make league football?
Well, probably the same advice that I'd give anyone who's contemplating any sport at all that is competitive and professional, is that you're only going to get out of that particular sport what you put in. There's a lot of cliches that are old and new and well used, but it's just a matter of hard work, and the more you put in, the more you'll get out of the game. So really, to anyone who's aspiring to be a league player, work as hard as you can, do whatever the coach instructs you, whether you think it's right or wrong. In the coach's mind, it's right for you and the team, so do it to the best of your ability and don't do anything half-hearted.
Russell Johnson in front, but it was McKechnie who knocked the ball out. Russell Ebert went to the tackle, a good one, holding the ball. That will be against Heinrich. Left foot kick, that's his ninth. He's played well. Evans didn't take the mark. Back to Russell Ebert. He's got possession now, goes very short. Wayne Russell. Now that about Russell Ebert. Very useful around those forward lines, and never wastes a kick or a handball.
Clifford, Leonard over the top, Kennedy, Bradley looking for the free, Russell Ebert 45 metres out, goes in with a long one, Evans, great mark!
Fell over, hooked it back, Stephen Knight's got it now over the top, Ebert, this is definitely a goal, he won't miss.
Craig Ebert's in there now, out towards Anderson. He's going to have to get a good sit on this one. In goes Salisbury, out he went. Knight gives Ebert a chance. Ebert back to Jennifer, left leg, goes for goal, going to be close. Goal! Beautifully done, Russell Ebert. The master and the tyro.
McDermott has to go within. The base rucks are in total disarray. They just don't know what to do at all at the moment. Ebert gives. Ebert couldn't mark the ball. Out goes Duthie, leaves it behind. Russell Ebert tries for his third goal, shoots it over the top. Wayne Russell will kick his second, and that's how easy it is.
Got it back to Kinnear, in towards the half-forward line, Ebert. Kick number 9, 35 metres out. Little breeze now. Ebert easily runs around, Riddlesey fires in the goal. Still a lot of football left in those legs. Flips it over now, Bradley back tonight in the 1-2. The Magpies go forward towards Russell Ebert. He's got it.
Out to Craig Ebert. Here's a chance now for Russell Ebert. And a half forward. Russell Ebert's got it. Bradley's short. He'll get it next. Good kick away. I've got a feeling the Magpies have got a little bit more. I don't know why. There's Ebert. An amazing kick around the corner. Evans.
That other great player of the late 60s and early 70s, North Adelaide champion Barry Robran, himself a triple Magarey medalist, talks about Russell Ebert, the opponent.
Bruce, I think you always had to respect him so much more than any other player because of his brilliance and his fairness, and I'm sure anybody who's played with him or against him would regard him as a very, very brilliant player. But because he was such a great player, you had to try and do something that little bit better against a player of his calibre.
Ebert's authoritative leadership as a centre man and as a captain has been one of the main reasons for Port Adelaide's success in recent years. Only time will tell if Ebert the coach will have as big an influence on the game as Ebert the player has had. Black and the white, honour the Magpies day and by night. Live that royal banner high, shake down the